Now, clanning is a reality of working with groups of people. Mm-hmm. There's an interesting thing that's related to clanning, which is just as important. And if you've ever heard the proverb that the blade of grass that sticks up is cut down,
Right.
This is a concept called convergence and divergence.
Okay.
Okay, and so the idea is that there's a natural tendency for members of a group to become more alike over time.
Totally.
That's convergence. And it's also, that group becomes less like other groups.
Yeah, it's why you
over
need
time.
to pick good friends.
Right. There's actually a wonderful quote by Jim Rohn that says, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." And it's very true. You become more like the people you spend time with and less like the people you don't spend time with, which is why choosing your company is extremely important.
Yeah.
If you want to become more successful, if you want to get better at something, if you want to, learn a skill or do things in a different way or whatever, you need to spend more time with people who want to do those things and are building those skills and have those priorities. And if you want to do less of certain things, let's say, bad habits or, all of those things, spend less time with people who are doing them.
Absolutely.
And, this is really important because every group exerts an influence. You can think of it as like a group gravity.
Right.
Everyone's in the group is exerting an influence on everybody else in the group.
It's one of the reasons why it's really, really hard for a lot of people to stop smoking.
Right.
Particularly now in so many places where it's illegal to smoke inside, and like you've met the other smokers and you all hang out outside at 3 o'clock. And I had a lot of friends who had a really hard time getting out of that just because a lot of their friends, that's how they knew them.
Right. And, if you're trying to change that habit, spending time in those situations with people who are still doing it,
it's not going to do anything.
It doesn't work. Same thing has to do with drinking. If you're drinking too much and you want to stop, don't go to a bar.
Right.
Because spending time with people who are doing this thing that you don't want to do is not a good idea.
It makes it seem like, well, if it's the whole social proof thing, if they're all doing it, well, it's hard to talk yourself back out of it.
Right. And we'll talk about social proof here in a second, but it's like you become more like the people you spend time with. And groups tend, this is why, there's, particularly larger companies develop what's often called a culture. There's a type of person who works for a company like IBM. Sure. There's a type of person who works for a company like Google.
In general.
Or Apple. Or, whatever. That's convergence and divergence too. Groups tend to become more alike in and of themselves and less like other groups. They form their own unique identity. So be very conscious of group gravity, both for the groups that you're in, who are you becoming more like, and also looking at all the other groups out there, who are you becoming less like being a member of the groups that you're in.
And also in hiring, it's extremely important.
Right.
Yeah.
Because, take someone who isn't going to fit in or doesn't want the same things or, have the same priorities, a lot of times there's a culture clash that happens there. And convergence and divergence actually explains why that happens.
Yeah, I once had a job where for the first time in my life, we didn't have one person who was like, oh, that one. You know how in every team there's like that one. Everybody's cool except for that one. There actually wasn't anybody. And then there was a new hire, and this person was a little bit lazy in certain things, and it's amazing to me that started having effect on these other people who would usually do their work. Like one person from the outside started to change it. And unfortunately, that person didn't become more diligent like everybody else. Right. So anyways, in hiring, it's really important.
And that actually goes both ways. So they probably would become a little bit more diligent.
I'm sure it did.
Everybody else becomes less diligent. So think of clanning.
It's kind of like the weakest link.
But also make sure you're taking into account convergence and divergence.
Yeah.
Your group is becoming more similar and they're becoming less like other groups.